All right, welcome to this week's Find Your Next Six-Figure Infill Deal call. It's March 6th. My name is Zach Matson. I'm a developer and builder here in Boise. I got my start back in 2013 house hacking, buying a duplex and living in one side and renting out the other while I fixed up my side. And I did that again in 2015 and then basically got into real estate full-time in 2016 after losing my job and got into full-time flipping. And then by 2019 and 2020, I bought my first infill development deal. And from there, I just kind of started scaling. So got a few under my belt, few smaller deals under my belt in 2021, 2020, 2021, 2022. And then really focused on scaling starting in 2024. And last year, I realized that there was a huge opportunity on the market and I couldn't possibly buy all the deals. So I realized there was a huge opportunity to help individual investors buy the deals that I was seeing, and basically kind of be a win-win situation where I created a system where we opened up these types of deals for investors that don't typically understand infill development or development at all, for that matter, and furthermore, just don't have the team in place to execute the deals. And then it was a win for me and my team obviously as well because it brings in revenue and more consistent revenue than our own deals where we just get paid at the very end. So we're on today's call, we're going to cover how you get access to our deal list full time. We're going to cover our infill deal offer where we actually have a profit guarantee. And then we'll cover the infill deal of the week as well as a few other deals this week as well. So getting into the deal list deals, so we actually partner with realtors and also individual investors. So for realtors, we actually partner with you. We offer training first. So in order to get full-time access to our deal list, we send you 3 training sessions, or we occasionally have these in person as well. Part 1, it covers infill development and kind of what our strategy is. Part 2 covers our construction process and just understanding how that works. And then part 3 is how to understand our deal list. Then after you watch those marketing or those videos, we do have some marketing campaigns that we, as a bonus, give you where you can co-brand with us. And then we just also have you sign an agreement stating that if you're going to use our strategies that we're suggesting with your buyers, that you're going to introduce us to your buyers early on in the process. And that just helps make sure that we can back our guarantees and back all of our implementation. Now, if you're an investor, an everyday investor, so we have the same process where you can actually get full-time access to our list as well. So you can see deals as they actively go on the deal list. And then how you get access to that is the same. We have the same 3 videos that are the training videos that are designed for investors. So parts 1, 2, and 3 covering infill development and our strategy, our building process, and then how to understand our list. We also make sure that you have a signed buyer's representative agreement with a sponsoring realtor. A sponsoring realtor is somebody that has access to our list. Now, if you're an investor that already has a contract with a different realtor, you can still bring them on. They just have to go through the same training that I previously mentioned for them, and then they can also get access. And then if you don't have a realtor that you work with, you can work with one of our realtors that have been through the training. We'll refer you to one of the people that we work with closely. The reason why we do that is these deals are just a little bit different, actually a lot different than most home purchases. They just require a great more level of detail and inner workings. So we just want to make sure that everybody that we work with is kind of on the same page so we can get these deals done. And then the last thing is we have you just sign an agreement that you're going to use our services if you implement our strategy on identified properties. Okay, and then moving on, so kind of how we make our money. So obviously I'm a builder and developer, so we make our money on the construction services, but we also charge a consulting fee at the time of purchase. So that just covers our time and efforts of putting this all together, but also we actually do really in-depth due diligence for you on the property. We do about 95% of the due diligence for you, and you can actually follow along with that. We'll cover that here in a minute. But we go through that due diligence period while you're under contract. And then just to cover our time and efforts and the cost of setting all this up, we charge a consulting fee for all that. And then we're fully integrated, fully vertically integrated. So we go through the entitlements, through the development and the building. On the entitlements, we just charge you, we manage it, basically the entitlements with all the agencies and professionals. We just charge you an hourly rate for our actual time spent doing that. And then on the development and vertical building, we actually just charge you our GC fee. Okay, moving on to our 6 figures in 36 months or less infill deal offer and how this works. So basically, I created this last year. I realized there was just a huge opportunity in infill development, particularly in Boise, but this is kind of in most major metro areas. And one thing I realized is that most investors have, number one, don't understand or recognize that there is an opportunity. And then number two, they don't know how to execute that opportunity. Most guys that are doing infill development, most builders that are doing it, there's only a handful in town here. And most of them, don't do this. Like actually nobody really does this for other people the way we do it. So we created this system basically to make sure that investors were confident in the deal because we understand that investors obviously don't want to lose money on a bad deal. They also are not always aware or know they don't know the process of development and they're afraid of making a mistake. Or they're also just worried about projects dragging on too long or contractors cutting corners. And then also the big one is just not having control or visibility. A lot of investors invest in other people's deals in multiple different ways. So we set this up so you actually have control and visibility into the deal. If you invest in somebody else's deal, most of the time you don't have any control or minimal control in that deal. And so we give you the keys on this deal and you fully control it. You just make the big decisions and we do all the heavy lifting. So the core components of this, so we offer expert deal underwriting. So we vet, analyze, and underwrite every deal on our list. So we're not just estimating numbers. We've done them all these steps ourselves and actively have deals currently that we are in every phase of development typically. Then we also offer and negotiation support. So we guide you and your realtor on how to structure and present offers so that they'll get accepted, but also so that they're structured properly so that everybody can do their part. Then we offer step-by-step due diligence. So this is where we actually have created a 19-page due diligence checklist. And so we guide you and your realtor on how to, we walk you through the due diligence process step by step. So you get access to that due diligence checklist when you're under contract, and then you can follow along with it. There's a few steps that we have, or there's a few due diligence processes that we have you do. Once we're under contract, we'll go into that further, or even if you're looking at a deal. And then on top of that, so if there's an existing house, a lot of our deals have an existing house on the property. And so if there's a renovation needed of that existing house, we can handle the renovations of that. I'm not a full remodel contractor. It's something that's in our purview and we have experience. Our team has experience. We're not advertising ourselves out there as a remodel contractor, but we can take it down. And that's just part of the service. And then the entitlement management, that's where we discussed before, where we handle the entitlements. And then on the horizontal and vertical construction, we're general contractors, so we manage and run all that. So bonus offers that we give you. So number one is we're going to give you the ultimate guide introduction to infill development. That's our guidebook on infill development and our process. We're also going to give you our due diligence checklist. So that's that 19-page due diligence checklist. I actually just redid it and it's actually a little bit cleaner. So I think that reduced a few pages. But it's a really in-depth due diligence checklist that, as far as I've seen, I don't think anybody goes as in-depth during due diligence as we do. And we can actually, on a lot of these deals that you don't get the due diligence timeline that you would normally get on a development, we can get 99% of the due diligence done in shorter periods. So bonus offer number 3. So before the end of due diligence, we're going to provide you with our 1-page underwriting worksheet that we base our guarantee on. So this acts as the final go or no-go underwriting for you to base your final investment decision on. So at the end of the project, we're going to compare the results with a guaranteed underwriting worksheet. And that's going to tie into our profit guarantee as well, which we'll cover here in a second. We're also going to provide you with our entitlement process checklist. So once we're through due diligence and you start in the entitlements, we're going to have a process checklist and then projected timelines for all those processes, so you can follow along with that. We're also going to provide you with our complete construction process and inspection checklist. So once we're under construction, we'll give you that process and inspection checklist, what we inspect. And then on the vertical construction, we also provide you with a third-party new home inspection report. So any build that we do, we actually have a third-party home inspector come in at 4 key phases. The first is that framing and rough-in, so you can see what's behind the walls and if any mistakes were made, and then they get fixed. And then we do it at drywall, and then at interior and exterior finishes, and then the final inspection. Sometimes that final inspection ends up being 2 reports because we'll have a few items typically at the very end that just need to be touched up or whatever, and then we send the inspectors back out there to make sure that everything is 100% good, so you know that you're getting a perfect house. Bonus offer number 7. So we're going to host a monthly progress call. We actually did that for the first time this last Friday. That's on our YouTube channel. So we're going to review all of our current projects for clients and also any of our own projects. And we'll cover the progress made from the previous month, as well as any challenges that came up with. And then we'll follow up with calls with individual projects or clients if they need to later on. Bonus offer number 8. So this is where we get into our entitlements and profit guarantees. So the entitlements guarantee is that we guarantee that if we don't achieve the unit count that we underwrite, so at that final underwriting sheet, if we say for this deal today, for example, that we can get 12 units, if we only get 11 when it's all said and done through underwriting, we waive our next fee or apply that fee towards the development costs. And then number 9 is, so we're going to offer you, provide you with our underwriting guarantee. So this is our profit guarantee. We guarantee that if the project doesn't meet at least 100% of the projected profit at the final underwriting, we refund you until it does. So that's up to $50,000 per deal on splits up to 1 or 2 lots. If it's more than that, like a subdivision today, we actually will do $20,000 per home up to a maximum of $200,000. So for example, this deal today, which we'll cover here in a minute, we're projecting it's going to be a little over 500,000 final profit. So if we get through the final underwriting and we say, okay, we're going to guarantee 500,000, we're going to back that up with a maximum of 200,000 guarantee. So essentially what that means is if it's all said and done and you end up only making 350,000, we're going to kick in, we actually hold off to the side that full 200,000. So when it's all said and done, at the end, if you don't make that 500,000, you only make 350, we actually kick back the 150, so you get made whole, get your entire $500,000 profit. Now, there's obviously still a little bit of risk. So if you only make 200,000, we're still going to kick in the 200,000 and you make 400,000. So there's no such thing as a no risk deal, but we de-risk it incredibly like an incredible amount more than any other builder or developer would do. All right, we're going to cover the details of the deal. Any questions before I jump into this? Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, getting into this week's deal. So this is actually a deal I've been working on since October. This was brought to me by a friend of a friend that was under contract. He's a wholesaler, but he was under contract on it, and I took a look at it at the first. When I first looked at it and what I knew they wanted for price, I knew it was way overpriced. So it took a few months of back and forth and getting a meeting set up with them, with the seller. And once we were able to do that, I was able to kind of approach it a different way where I could give them some options, but also kind of educate them a little bit on how the land development process works, and the costs associated and all that fun stuff. So essentially we got under contract now, where it's going to be a profitable deal for somebody. So the best thing, well, we'll cover that here in a second. Purchase price, we have 776.9. actually, we will cover this. So the best thing about this deal, and this is extremely rare for this for infill deals, but we actually negotiated with the seller to not close until it's fully entitled. So fully entitled means it's gotten approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission, it's got an approval from City Council, and then you have the civil engineering plan stamped and approved, and you're ready to break ground. So the importance with that is what that means is that when we close on the deal, there's no risk involved as far as like, how many units we can do. There's no risk in, well, there's minimal risk in added cost during construction because we already have the civil plans and we've bid those out and we have that price for the most part locked in. So by the time you close on it, you know, 60% of the risk of the whole entire deal is removed. So that makes it pretty huge. And then on top of that, you're not paying holding costs during that period. So it takes about a year to get it entitled. So there's no holding costs. You're not closing on it, and then basically paying monthly interest, property taxes, and all that fun stuff while you hold the property while you're getting it entitled. So that saves tens of thousands of dollars. So that's huge on this deal too. So essentially, you're controlling it for an entire year while you get it approved. And then you can close on it, and it's easier to get a construction loan. So the other thing with this deal too is because the existing house is on its own lot. Now we would subdivide it more, but I'm pretty sure I didn't actually underwrite it this way, but I'm pretty sure you could get a traditional mortgage on the existing house. And that would actually decrease your interest costs by a lot on the construction. But then you can actually finance the construction 100% on the horizontal construction because you have an approved project, you have an approved budget, and the loan to value costs are going to be right in the realm. In fact, probably lower than what the construction lenders are going to like to see. So you can finance 100% of the construction costs there, and then once that construction is done, then you can roll into the vertical loan and finance 100% of those construction costs. So that's what these numbers are. So that's the capital invested. So this is for paying for entitlements. So you do have that out-of-pocket costs in that first year. So there's obviously a risk there where you're paying through for entitlements. But the majority of the entitlements, which is we'll cover in a second, but it's a total of 110,000. The majority of that isn't until you actually start doing the civil engineering plans. So you've already had an approved project with city council, you know what you can do on it. So you have that approved, and then it's just a matter of spending the money to get the civil engineering plans approved from there. And then the rest of this 390,000 is just paying the interest costs on those loans. So on the horizontal and the vertical, there's actually a good chance some of that can actually be also rolled into the construction loans, but we just underwrote this. You're paying all the interest costs out of pocket. So that's kind of spread out over the course of 3 years as well. So total profit, 511,000. We'll cover how that works here over here. So the existing house, so it's a single story with a basement, 4 bedroom, 2 bath, about 1,500 square feet. As is, so the upstairs is really not in bad condition, but it does need, it needs a remodel. There's actually the electrical basically needs to be completely redone. Probably a lot of the plumbing as well. So it's going to be a fairly hefty remodel. That's also in our budget later on. I'll show you. But then the basement needs a full bathroom remodel. And then, pretty much just kind of a lipstick on the rest of it. So it's not a complete gut job, but probably a pretty hefty remodel. So this is the price you're paying per lot over what we value the house at. So about 45,000. Now, normally on the bench, I like to be between 30 and 50,000. So this is kind of right in that area where you can still make the house is profitable. And then we have your entitlement cost per lot, your development cost per lot. This is including interest, I believe. So then if you go to sell the finished lots, we know you can sell them for at least 150,000 on the bench. They sell lots typically this size sell for between 150 and 165 pretty regularly. A lot of builders will buy them at that price. So you have a profit per house if you need to sell the project then at about 20 or project profit per lot at $20,000. Now, I'd prefer to, be in deals with, or do these deals with people that are going to go all the way through vertical. And typically, you're going to have a lot higher upside on the vertical as well. But the reason why I point this out is because, sometimes things change, the market changes, maybe your situation changes, um, you know, whatever it is, there's multiple exit points. So the reason why I bring this up is just because there's multiple exit points. So the first exit point is once it's entitled. The second point is once you actually have it developed. And then the third point is at the final vertical, once it's finished. These are our construction costs per house. That includes our fee. And I'm actually going to go into a different spreadsheet here in a second, but we actually have different size houses in here. So we have like, I think 6 or 7 different floor plans that we would do in different sizes, which would also help them sell further. So you're not doing, 11 houses repeated on the bench. And then we have this is your total all-in cost per house. That's for the land, entitlements, development, and construction. And then this is the financing costs for the construction, as well as the second year of the development loan that gets rolled into the construction loan. And then this is the average sale price for the sizes that we have, your sales costs, and then your profit per house. And that's an average again. Now, this stuff is all pretty conservative too. So I think realistically, when it's all said and done, this is going to be probably closer to 50,000. But we actually went because we've been working on this so long, we've actually went pretty far in depth on development costs and all that fun stuff. And went again, we're pretty conservative on the resale and costs and everything. But I think, and really too, in 3 years, more than likely, we'll see some appreciation in the market. We don't predict that or what that's going to look like, but just historically, over 3 years, you typically see that. Okay, this is the renovation cost of the existing house. So this would be fixing up that existing house. The ARV of that existing house, there's actually one that's currently, I think, pending. That's sold basically at this price. It's about the same size and layout and everything, and nice. So then your sales cost for that, this is what your holding cost is, like the interest for buying that house and renovating it. And then your profit on that house is about 80,000, assuming that we are assigning 275 on that. This is okay. So if you refinance the entire development, which would be your horizontal costs, your vertical costs, and I think the vertical interest. I think that's what all this is. So you could refinance all that if you wanted to keep everything, for example. I don't think it would cash flow with this, but this is what your total debt would be. And the other thing too, so more than likely we wouldn't build all 12 houses like all at the same time. We'd likely stagger them, not necessarily in phases, but we would probably maybe start 3 or 4, depending on what the market's doing. So we can get, really far in depth, but essentially right as we're finishing up the horizontal, it takes a few months to get the plat signed, but that gives us a perfect opportunity to analyze the market, start doing some pre-marketing for the vertical. Ideally, you get some pre-sold. So depending on what the market is doing, sometimes, especially if you have really good renderings, you can get the houses pre-sold or a number of them pre-sold. So ideally, you get a handful of them pre-sold, and that de-risks your deal even further and reduces your interest costs because you have it where you can close on it right when you're finished building, or even better yet, the client finances it and you don't pay any interest costs. That increases your profit further. Even if you discount it a little bit, you typically, if you can discount it half of what you'd pay in interest costs, that increases your profitability. But anyway, so then while you're doing that, while you're waiting for the plat to get signed and waiting to go vertical, So you try to pre-sell it, but then you also analyze the market on the absorption rate. And so what that is how long it's going to take to sell 12 homes in the existing market on the Boise bench. So if the absorption rate is, for new construction is over 6 months, let's say the absorption rate is 12 homes. It's probably more than that, but let's say it's 12 homes. But then there's currently 6 on the market. Well, you don't want to saturate the market, so you don't want to overbuild. So maybe you say, okay, I only want to build maybe 4 at a time, and then we'll go in and stagger them. So we'll frame the first 4 houses, we'll start the other process, drywall and everything, and we'll start the other 4 houses. And then each of those 4 houses are staggered by a month or two. So that's one way you can basically do it in all one phase, but essentially staggered, so you're not bringing all 12 houses onto the market all at the same time. Okay, so what we also do with these is, so let's say as an investor, you want to buy this development, but then maybe you want to also own rentals. So what we do on every one of these bigger deals is we analyze, okay, let's sell all but one house, including the existing house. By the way, so that existing house, you can't sell it right when it's entitled. It is on its own lot, so theoretically you can, but ultimately we'll have to put development stuff on the existing lot unless we can adjust the size while we're getting it entitled, which that is possible, maybe. But more than likely, you're going to have to get it entitled, and then it's still going to be encumbered by the rest of the development until you have that final plat. And so how that works is once it's fully developed and you have the plat signed, now you have that new lot for that existing house, and now you can sell it. So you can sell that existing house before you go vertical on the others, or while you're going vertical on the others. So that'll pay down your debt. And then you have 11 houses to build and sell. So let's say you want to build all 11, sell 10 of them. Well, you still get, after you sell 10, you get $550,000 back. And remember, you have 390,000. That's where this comes in right here. So you have 390,000 of your capital in the deal over that time period. This is your remaining equity. But once you sell that 10th house, you get $550,000. Now, and this might be going too far into the weeds, but you can set up those construction loans to pay a little bit on each house, or basically at the final 1 or 2, you get all your capital back and profit. So however you want to set that up. But then the capital return, so you get $550,000 back to your 390. So you basically make $159,000 on that capital. So you get your capital back plus $159,000, plus you own that 11th house free and clear. So you own that outright. You could theoretically do this with a second house too and just leverage both of them at really low leverage. But this is what those rentals would look like with that. So this is what we would estimate insurance. So this might be a little bit higher. Property tax. This is these two spread out over 12 months evenly. So then a 4-bedroom house on the bench rents for $2,800 fairly easily. This is what your monthly cash flow would be. So your new construction payment, or your new construction rents minus your obligation for tax and insurance. And then if you want to manage it professionally, so you basically set aside money for obviously or you have the vacancy costs, your management costs, and then also just, turnover, advertising, repairs, CapEx savings, that kind of thing. So that's what we estimate here. So your overall cash flow is $1,850 per month on that house, on something that you own for free, essentially. So that cap rate is basically infinite. You can't really calculate that if you own the house for free. But that's basically what that is based on. We can calculate it based on the value, but we calculate it based on what you own the house for. And then we also analyze this as a short-term rental. This is just using AirDNA's data, but we also estimate this is after paying a property management manager here as well. So your cash flow is about $500 a month better as an STR. And the other thing with AirDNA too is like they don't, they put all the statistics together. So more than likely, if we design, if you want to keep it as a short-term rental, we're going to design it as a short-term rental. So we can basically design it with all that in mind so that it actually maximizes your nightly rent and also your occupancy. So typically we can design these to be much more profitable. Okay, I think that's everything on this proper. Well, let me actually go really quick. Let me actually pull up the site plan. Okay, this is the site. So this is the existing house right here. So this isn't actually the footprint of the existing house. It's kind of in this area, but we actually drew this out. So if you wanted to do a new construction house here, you could. We underwrote it with the existing house. But that's basically roughly the footprint of where this is. I think it's slightly over here more. But this lot would still accommodate if you keep the existing house, which is more profitable. I believe I'd have to go back and look at it. But either way, this is that existing house, and then we would do 3 skinnier homes up front here. These would be about 1,500 square feet each. This is your fire turnaround. These two would be a little bit larger. I think this one we have at like 2,200 square feet, 1,800 square feet. And then we have some smaller homes in the back. These 3 are between, I think, 1,350 and 1,450. And then these 3 are around 1,750 square feet. Now notice all these all have 2-car attached garages. That's actually better than code. The new zoning code, you only actually need 1 parking space per unit. But what we realize is in subdivisions like this, most people are going to have 2 vehicles. Sometimes, especially if a lot of these infill developments, they get sold as rentals, and a lot of times you have college kids renting out rooms. So you end up with like 3 or 4 vehicles per house. And so we just realize on most of these types of developments, you want to actually have more than what the minimum required parking is. And so that's what that does. Um, any questions on anything I've covered so far? The other thing I want to bring up here is there's not many people know about these, but there's these things called cottage villages. I will cover that with you out. I'm not going to tell you the address online here. I'll cover that. I'll send you a text message, but it's in the central bench. It's if you know where the push and pour is over there, it's right near there. So we do have this under contract. I'm just gonna not share the address publicly here right now. But anyway, it's right near push and pour on the central bench. Okay, so the cottage villages, so that's kind of a new they started popping up maybe 7-8 years ago in Boise, and there's a new zoning, or the new zoning code actually codified cottage villages a little bit more. And so you can actually, with cottage villages, you can actually reduce your development costs significantly, because essentially you centralize parking. So what we would do is probably put parking all probably right over here. Maybe it might have to go into here, but then the rest of this could all be cottages. Now, the zoning code, if this was all just raw bare land and you tore down the house, the zoning code allows you to maximize the density. So this is literally on exactly an acre. You could do 12 cottages on that acre. Now, there is another incentive in the code where if you retain this existing house, you can actually, this is kind of crazy. This is kind of crazy, the code, but if you retain this existing house, those those maximum densities go away. And now it becomes how many can you fit on here and how many parking can you get in here to accommodate those. So it's one parking space per unit. We would probably want to put some guest parking in there once you get up into this, but just from experience in laying out some of these other properties I'm currently working through on some other deals, I know I can probably get at least six more cottages. So we could theoretically do 18 cottages plus keep this existing house. Possibly more. I have to look at it that way, but those cottages, the cool thing with that is the cottages essentially are so people still buy the houses individually, but they don't own the land. So they're a little bit more affordable housing, but they still sell for basically what the two-bedroom houses sell for on the bench. So even though they don't own the land, they own part of the land because they own as a group, they own the whole lot. So the 18 people that own the houses or whatever equally share the property, and then they own their actual house. So those cottages on the bench are probably would sell for 400,000. And the price per square foot, sale price per square foot is a lot higher the smaller house you get. So we can get 18 cottages in here that are all, let's say 900 square feet, and those sell for 350 a square foot versus, 1700 square foot homes that sell for 370 or sorry, 275 a square foot. The profitability per square foot goes up. Now your cost per square foot goes up to build as well, because the bigger home you get, typically the cost goes down slightly, but the gap widens basically. So the profitability widens the smaller you get typically. So that could be an option. The other thing too is you don't have this big street in here. Essentially, all you do is you have this street going in here, goes into group parking. The rest of this is all pathways. So everybody just walks to their individual cottages. So you have one centralized parking. Obviously, you still have to bring water, sewer, and all the utilities, but you don't have streets and sidewalks and all that fun stuff. So I'm gonna also underwrite this as the cottage village. We just didn't do that up to this point, but it is an option on this property. So anyway, any questions about that? Okay, I'm gonna get into some of these other deals here. Okay, one of the deals that we saw, I think 2 weeks ago now, this deal on Chucker Lane. So this is kind of out in South Boise. What's kind of unique about this one, this wasn't, I mean, I guess it's maybe technically infill. It's not my typical infill project, but and it's larger, it's 10 acres. But what's interesting about it is it sits literally right next to I forget the name of that, Murio Farms development. So that's a 380 acre development in South Boise that just got approved a couple weeks ago. They've been working on it for years and it just got approved like literally a couple weeks ago. Um, so that's a big builder project. There's going to be like 3,500 homes out there. So this site abuts that, and it's also right next to some other lower density housing. So there's actually utilities already in the street like 300 feet away. So we could actually bring this utilities and everything in prior to the waiting for the Murio farm. So this is a 10-acre subdivision. We anticipate it getting rezoned, like the future land use is R1C, but possibly even higher density. We analyze it as R1C, but that Murio Farms actually has technically its own zoning, but it has the it has higher densities like R2 in there. In fact, R2, the future land use for this actually coordinates closer to R2 than it does R1C. So theoretically, we could actually even get more houses in here. But anyway, this is a big one where it's 1.6 million. There's an existing house on the property that's worth as is probably 500,000. So you're paying a little bit of a premium on the land, but that's for like 80 units. So this deal is, or this capital is to basically finance the house, and then you could actually get a land loan on the land. I think you can get farm loans on those. But that's anyway, using your maximum leverage. Ideally, somebody, if they wanted to buy that, is now the house does sit on its own lot too. So you can actually finance the house. Ideally, if you're going to leverage it, you would finance the house and then just pay the land for cash. So the 1.1 million right in there. And that kind of lowers your risk on that. But if anybody's interested in a larger deal, this is like an 80 home subdivision. It's right next door to, or it's right like a few hundred feet away from the CBH development over there as well. Forget the name of that off the top of my head. Um, but yeah, I have this fully underwritten as well. So if you have anybody that's looking at these larger deals, this one, it's got a ton of profit. What I will say is on these deals that are more greenfield development versus infill development, because it kind of is out in the middle of nowhere. Now it's more expensive to bring in the infrastructure typically. So you pay a little bit more on infrastructure. You have some cost savings on the land per lot plus the entitlements, just because there's so much um uh uh that's a little over 10 acres. I think it's 10.83 acres, Keith. Keith. 10.59 acres. But anyway, so you have economies of scale here. So the cost per lot is low, the entitlement cost per lot is low, but then your development cost per lot kind of jump up there because you have to put in all the infrastructure as opposed to infill. Most of it's already there. You're just bringing it a little bit further. Um, and then your resale costs in that area are actually decent, but because you're competing with the big builders, they're incentivizing the heck out of those homes. I think they're giving away an average like 35,000 per house. So I factor that into all the cost per home as well on my further underwriting. So these numbers were kind of like a really rough numbers, but I think the profitability is about the same on my further in underwriting. So if you have anybody that's looking for this type of deal, I can show them, or we can go over the more in-depth underwriting on this deal. But that's an interesting one. The cool thing as far as like my team and everything too, like we're not scared of the size deal. We like infill on these like in town ones a little bit better because they're more manageable for individual investors, but also they're more profitable per house. So they're a little bit safer for individual investors, but you have some huge scalability with these. They're just more competitive. You're competing with the bigger builders. Now, what I will say with that too is I know we design a better house than CBH and the other builder that's next door. I forget who that is, but looking at, comparing both of those, if we build uh our product around them, and we sell it for about the same price, market price, we're not gonna have to incentivize it to give it away. Okay, and then this one on Hill Road is still around. We can build kind of 5 luxury homes. You have about, when it's all said and done, about $100,000 profit on each house there. Um, Actually more than that per house, but you lose money on the existing house just because you're holding and sales costs. But that's still around, at least when I checked last night. Let's see. I'm gonna go to vacant land. Oh, so this deal came on the market. It's been a few days now. This one here. So this is in Garden City. What's kind of fun about this is we actually have a client that bought the property like on the same street. So we can actually combine this with our client's property and we get some savings there. Not necessarily with the infrastructure because it's all already there anyway, but you can get some savings in the parking because the way Garden City's parking works, if this is one combined parking, you only have, or one combined project, you only have to do 6 total parking spaces for the unit count we have, versus if you separated them completely, we need 3 on one, and then on this one we would need 5. So you basically would have to add 2 more parking spaces if you did this separately, versus if we have it combined. It's going to take a minute to pull this up maybe, but anyway, I have a layout. If it doesn't go pending, which I doubt it will, it'll likely be our deal of the week next week. So just a heads up there. But this one, the price per lot is about the same as what our client bought theirs at. So it's a little bit higher price because we can get, I think I have 9 units on this one. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 10 units. think we have 10 units on this one. And I think we have 5 on his. So you're actually paying, I think it's either 9 or 10, but anyway, it's about the same price per lot that we have. And I haven't fully underwritten this yet, but just knowing what the other deal was, I know this is probably looks really good for this sale price, which we'll cover again. We'll underwrite this further. So here's the overhead. So the cool thing is with this property, so if people aren't familiar with Garden City that are, watching this online or whatever, there's a lot of older mobile home parks that are going away and they're going away pretty quickly. It's getting redeveloped. There's a ton of redevelopment in Garden City. So we have a client that owns this property right here. I know this guy actually wants to sell as well. I think this is another developer. So I'm actually going to approach him and see if I can get this under contract as well. But this parcel, this is actually 2 parcels, but the same owner. So that sale price is both of these. So we can essentially redevelop this whole block. And this is on 39th. This is just a couple blocks away from the green belt and the Whitewater Park area. So it's kind of halfway between Whitewater Park right here and the boardwalk, which is right here. And then this is the Ada County Highway District site that they're getting kicked out, or they're moving. So this is all going to get redeveloped into something awesome, I'm sure too. But it's all right in the middle of this stuff, and the Greenbelt is literally like quarter of a mile away, if that. So great location. Pretty good prices here for this side of veterans. So you can get, the price per lot here is pretty good for the resale costs that we see there and everything too. So anyway, we'll present that probably later on, if it's still on the market. And then let's see, this one was on the market last fall, and then it expired or canceled, and then it just went back on the market again this morning, I think. We actually had this as a deal of the week back in October 17th. So if you want to rewatch the deal or the video on that, I don't know if I actually was recording them then, but either way, if you're interested in that, we can go over that. But this one has some pretty awesome potential as well. This is zoned commercial. It's right next door, so we don't have to wait for that overhead. The property that this is actually right next door to Casino Beach, like literally right next door. So super close access to Whitewater Park. It's literally right there. Because it's zoned commercially and we don't really have this product here, I think it would be really cool to build a condo tower here. So it's this square right here. So it's I think 2 or 3 lots, but it's this one right here. So it's this house and then this little house. It's all it's 2 separate lots, but 2 buildings. This would all just get scraped. This is Casino Beach. These townhomes are about 2,200 square feet. They're selling for just shy of 900,000, I believe. So we could do townhomes here. I think I wrote this originally as condo or townhouses. But you can also do this. I think it would be cool to do a condo tower and kind of maximize the density. And I think condos would sell really well in this area. But great location. Obviously the price is a little higher, but if you're talking, this is about double. This is about double the price of this one, a little bit more than double. And with townhomes, you can only get a couple more townhomes, but the sale price is like a couple $100,000 more per home. And then you also, if you did condos, let's say we can get, even if it's only like 24 condos in there and they sell at a premium, your cost per unit gets pretty close to this. And then your premium on the resale is high. So really cool, potential on this one. And then what's interesting too is this property. So this is double the price, double the size, but double the price. But that is this property right here. So it's I think it's these 2 lots and these 2 lots. So 4 lots, maybe 3, might be this 3rd lot right here. Either way, it's double the size of this. They already have this approved right here, I think for 6 townhomes, I want to say, maybe 5. I could actually add one more standalone home right here and not really change anything. But I think they already have it approved. I was hoping we could sneak in there before they got it approved, but I know this is approved with city council. This one they're kind of leaving to whoever wants to do whatever. But I think that price is for this whole project. So this part is approved, so you can do this as phase 1, do this as phase 2 later. Another really cool project in Garden City in the heart of everything. This is where the other push and pour is right here. Then the taco stand there. So some really cool larger infill projects. I think that's I'm going to cover on there for right now. And I don't think I have any single lot splits that I'm excited about. Except for, oh, sorry. This one is the deal of the week last week. Make sure it's not pending. It wasn't last night. Kind of a higher purchase price. It's a pretty big home. So $1 million, but the lot that it sits on, it's on almost a half an acre. We can actually split 2 5,000 square foot lots off the back. And so this area of town, this is right in the foothills, right on Collister. So you're right at the base of north of Hill Road, right at the base of like where those Polecat is. So Polecat is just another half mile up that same road. Uh, but yeah, anyway, so we could split 2 lots off of there. There's minimal infrastructure that has to go in to do that. So you could sell off those lots individually. The homes, your profit per home is just shy of 200,000. You lose a little bit of money on the existing house because you just because you're gonna have some sale costs and then you're gonna have the holding costs. So we did this as 2 different ways. One is if you just buy it as an investor, and then one way is if you want to buy this and live in it. What we don't factor into this cost is your housing cost, because if you're going to live in something, you're going to have that expense no matter what. But you could do this for less capital out of pocket, and more profit. Or if you just buy it as an investor, more capital and a little less profit, but still the annual profit is pretty good. So yeah, that's a single lot split. There's also this one. This is another potential. It just kind of doesn't meet our 6-figure model. It would. It's just that you lose a little bit of money on that existing house. Otherwise, the house itself would make 6 figures, or the new house, I would say. But if somebody wants a little bit smaller deal with less capital, that's what this could do. And that's still a great annualized return. 20% annual return for an investor on 150,000. That's pretty outstanding. So I think that's it that I'm going to cover right now. But yeah, we'll cover these deals further in depth if you guys want. Reach out to me individually. We can have a individual call on any of these. And then this other deal in Garden City that's next to the one our client already owns, if this doesn't sell, it'll likely be next week's deal of the week. All right, any questions?